episode 3 of Jocks and Jills. Welcome in, Tessa Julia Tasheri with you. We're coming off the All-Star break. We got a few games to break down. We got an incredible interview coming for you today, but should we start, Tess, by just saying thanks a lot for the response to the first 2 episodes? Like, it's been dope to see everybody enjoying and kind of getting to take in this new era of women's hockey coverage.
It's been really cool to watch the feedback and the suggestions and, you know, just the outpour of love and how much people are loving women's hockey. That makes me the most excited. It made us so excited, Joe, that we were like, we should probably do more than 1 episode a week. I mean, right now, probably not yet, because you and I are just searching for, you know, some spare time to sneak in a nap. However, we love that you guys are loving the content. So we're going to try and bring, you know, the most that we can to you. And this week, albeit it was an all-star break for the league, however, there was still a lot of fun things going on. But before we get to that, Julia, I know our last episode we had Taylor Heisey on, and you guys were so stoked about Tate McRae because she was going to be at the all-star weekend. So I got a back of the bus confessional for you here, and the fact that I do have a better idea now. I had no idea who Tate McRae was, and I feel really bad. I almost want to hand in my Canadian passport.
I don't think you should, honestly. She's an up-and-comer. Like, I think this weekend was a real arrival for her, honestly, for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I asked Ed, and he was like, no idea. And I gave her a Google. She's done some awesome stuff, and it's pretty cool to see her, you know, in the mix with the NHL guys. But I had to give her a really big Google, and then that got me to thinking about all the stuff and the things that you say that I have like no idea what you're talking about sometimes, like social media stuff. And like recently, I don't know if you know what it means, but like the Toronto team's always saying ski yee. And I'm like, is that Googling?
It's like addictive.
Is it? And then there's like,
I don't know. It's in a song, honestly. You're not missing too much with that one.
Yeah. And then, you know, Sarah Nurse and Lexi Adzija were posting some stuff, and it was like GRWM, and I was like,
can you guess what that means?
No, I was on set with Laura Dykin last night.
Come on, bro.
Swear to God.
I know you two. You're two smart ladies. I know you two put your heads together and figured that one out.
We sat there and stared at each other, and even the people in our control room were like, and we couldn't figure it out. And I was like, I am so not cool. I'm there. And so then she sent me.
Can I tell you what it is?
Yeah, it's get ready with me. I Googled it. Yes. I've Googled all of this. I know what it all means now. Why don't we just use the words?
You stay current, girl. Yeah, you're right. You're just trying to keep it short on social media. But, you know, good job with the Googles.
Do you know how long it took me to understand what TBH meant? I was like, I don't even. And I had to Google that one as well. OMW. I still don't even know if SMH is smack my head or shake my head. Is it both?
It's shake my head, I think. But you can say smack my head. That sounds very Tessa. I like it.
Okay.
Instead of
doing that, I just send that emoji with the hand on the head.
Yeah.
And then
I have to say, though, like while you're in the midst of sitting here aging yourself, I'm absolutely lighting you up when it comes to the jock debate. Like even your friends are calling you old.
My cousin wrote me, Jillian. She was like, dude, you got to stop with that drill. Like that is brutal. I was like, what?
Is
She's
that?
like, I'm on Julia's side. I was like, you guys don't even know what's coming. You haven't even, what you wear is too bunchy. It's too bunchy. And like,
we actually had a lot of people agree with Abby as well, that they just go no Jill. And I was surprised by that response as well.
Nope. Did that one time, was playing against Finland, and Emma Laxonen, my former Ohio State teammate and was one of the captains on Team Finland. I'm going to assume she'll be a future Hall of Famer. She's done enough. She took a clapper from the point, and it was like a knuckler. And it came in and got me square in the pubic bone. And I dropped like a ton of bricks, and it hurt a lot. And I skated to the bench, and our trainer was a man, Doug Stacy, one of my favorite trainers of all time. He's such a funny dude. And he came over, he's like, oh man, what happened? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I just blurted it out, and I was like, she got me square in the box. And he was like, he like stood up and kind of took 3 steps back, and then he laughed, and he was like, what did you say? I'm like, I don't want to say it again. Anyways, that was like our moment.
Not again.
Yeah. He's like, I'll just leave you to it. You let me know when you're okay. I'm like, just get me some ice. He was like, okay. Anyways, that being said, I'm trying to get cool and with all that stuff. Laura actually sent me a thing last night when I got home from Modern Family. Dunphy, the dad, he was like, yeah, you know, I'm so cool. I know all of the lingo. I text with LOLs and the WTFs, you know, why the face? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. This is me. I am
Yeah,
Dunphy.
it might be. But you know what? This weekend in Toronto, I feel like we all got our cool carts back because the city was buzzing. There was so much celebrity activity.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some stories to go around about this weekend. Any highlights you want to point out?
You know what? Ed and I went out one night. We went to a Nobis party, and
Cool.
the boys from Shoresy were there. Michaels, we had TR was there too. His dad was there. Oh my gosh, what a legend. The Rec Laws played there for us. It was an awesome night, just shooting the breeze with people, getting out and about. We went to a speakeasy afterwards, stayed out way too late, made my in-laws stay over and
Sick.
literally, I felt so bad. We're out and we're having such a good time. We just literally didn't ever look at a clock or our phones at all. And people were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go to this after party or this other bar." I'm like, "All right, let's ride." And then I looked at my phone and I'm like, "Did we ever tell your parents what time we were coming home?" And he's like, "What time is it?" And it was like pretty late. So he called his mom and was like, "Can you stay over till 3?" She's like, "In the morning? No, like, come on, man." So he's like, "Okay, we're gonna go to one more bar and then come home." Anyways, his poor parents stayed till like we got home at 10 to 3, so it wasn't 3, but it was still 3.
It wasn't 3.
It wasn't 3. Sorry,
It
Linda.
wasn't
Sorry,
3.
Dan. Thanks for being the best.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was buzzing around kind of all weekend. I was at the women's game yesterday, the actual like return to regular season. Sorry, I mean Saturday.
Mhm.
But that night, so Toronto played Minnesota at 12, and
Mhm.
then the All-Star game was at 3. Both those were really fun. I bounced around to kind of both of them. And then my boyfriend Liam, it was his birthday, and he played at 7 at Ryerson. He plays on University of Guelph. And then Liam and I don't hit the bars that much anymore, but we kind of felt obliged to this weekend. Like everybody was out, right?
Yeah.
Like you just had to go see the sights kind of. And when I go to a bar, I'm much more of like I don't know. I used to really like the club scene. Now somebody bumps into me, I'm like everything in me has to hold myself back from throwing an elbow. I don't like to be bumped into.
You're not even
I
30
don't
yet.
like drinks being spilled. I know, dude, but when people are bumping into me in the bar, I'm gonna freak out. Like, stop bumping into me. I'm not built to withstand any sort of bumping.
Right.
So Saturday night we ended up at Paris, Texas, and my friend Abby, it was one of those nights like we got to Paris, Texas, Tess, and there was like 300 people waiting outside. I'm like, there's no way
Oh
we're
my
getting into this
God.
bar. We saw all the all-stars kind of getting let in. I'm like, Liam, I don't have that kind of pull. Like my friend texted me to bring my media pass. I don't think it's gonna help. Suddenly, my little friend Abby, who is just this person, she wanders her little butt out of the bar. I had seen Matt Barzell do this, and I had
Mhm.
seen a couple other NHL players come out and do this, wave their friends in. And I'm like, I don't have an NHL player friend in there. But I have Abby from Thunder Bay. And she walked her little butt out. She waved me and Liam in, and the security guards just listened to her. It was ridiculous. I have no
Abby.
idea how that worked. So we kind of got to see
'Cause
the sights that night. Yeah. The
you don't
Chicklets
ask
guys
for
were in there.
permission. Yeah, you don't ask for
You just got to
permission. You ask
walk
for
in.
forgiveness. That's it, Abby. She gets it. Thunder Bay, Northern Ontario.
Hundo.
What's up?
It just wound up being like the most fun birthday night ever for Liam. It was like he didn't have his teeth in the bar. He's missing his 2 front teeth. And everybody in the bar was like on the prowl for NHL players. So I was like, you know what? Keep it moving, ladies. This is not what you think it is. Just keep walking. This is not.
Is his eye
And
still
at one
cut?
point, oh yeah, his eyes cut. He was missing his teeth. He was like a star in the bar because all the NHL players were in different booths around. But Grinelli from Spitting Chicklets is standing up on a bar and he locks eyes with Liam at one point. Liam's like smiling ear to ear. He spots the missing teeth and he waves him over like he's like some girl in a bar on King West and starts pouring a shot of tequila in his mouth.
Stop
I was
it.
like, okay. So it was a good night. It wound up being like the best birthday ever for Liam, and it was a fun All-Star weekend in Toronto for sure.
I'm just gonna hand out the partner points to Liam. It's his birthday.
He actually, yeah, it was a big week for Liam. I think he's coming back. He's mounting a comeback.
Sorry, Ed. It's 2-1. Liam gets the points. We're not even waiting until the end. There you go, Liam. You got to win, bud.
Yeah, he got a W. But I guess with that, now that we've story told for a bit, we can get to the 3 games that went down this week. 4, I guess, if we count the All-Star game. You and I got to watch the All-Star game together at Scotiabank. Wait, actually, we have more we have to break down.
I do. I wanted to ask you. Buble was having
Shrooms? Is that
himself
what
a
you're asking me
time. You were
about?
there, yeah. Did you dip into the mushrooms with Buble? Were you having a time? I woulda.
I didn't get into the mushrooms with Buble, unfortunately. I'm like not that cool that if I was invited, I would have, but not cool enough for that. We kind of waited throughout the whole draft because Justin Bieber was this is my biggest L of life and maybe of the weekend.
Mhm.
Justin Bieber was supposed to be in that media conference where Buble admitted he was on shrooms, but he didn't show up. And we had sat there the whole time waiting. It was the craziest thing ever. Michael Bublé also picked Jesse. He sat there in front of everybody and was like, I know all of you. He's pointing at all of the media and he said, and especially you. And he points at Jesse, who's sitting right next to me. It was crazy. You could totally tell. He was chewing on his tongue a bit, but Michael Bublé is a beauty. And
Can I
imagine
tell you?
being on the Vancouver Giants. Like, he owns a hockey team. Like, imagine that guy being your boss in hockey. I need
Yes,
that in my life.
that is exactly what the NHL should be thanking and praising Bublé for. It's exactly what the NHL weekend needed. So whoever his buddy is, I'm just going to assume it was Bieber, but I don't want to point fingers because that's not fair. Whoever it was that gave him it was a macro dose. Obviously, it wasn't a micro dose.
Microdose means something different for everybody, I guess.
Well, yeah, I don't know, man. Kudos to you. You kicked off the All-Star weekend exactly how it needed to be kicked off.
You're so right.
It
And
was so
hilarious,
great.
like, side part to that story is that Taylor Heisey was sitting directly behind me in that press conference because Tate McRae was also supposed to be in that press conference.
She
It
wanted
didn't
to meet her
show.
so
It's like
bad.
all the media and the first overall pick of the PWHL just casually trying to sneak in for a Tate McRae sighting.
I love it. Did
incredible.
you end up meeting her?
I don't think she ended up meeting her, but the PWHL did do this cool like Skate McRae thing. They put her in the goalie pads and like dressed her up the way that Tate McRae is dressed up on her like album where she's wearing goalie pads. You know, okay, wait, you don't know all the lore here, but Tate McRae was dating an NHL player. She was dating Cole Sillinger, and they broke up. She put out this breakup album that was pretty hockey themed, like she had hockey pads on. I don't know. I'm telling you,
Why'd they
kind of
break up?
teenage drama right now.
Oh, teenage stuff.
I think he had a Tinder problem. He had a Tinder profile.
Oh, what a
Can't be doing that, Cole.
loser.
I heard her say that in an interview.
Don't be
now
dating
I'm like
someone
spreading
if
it on
you
our
wanna
hockey podcast.
Like, don't be dating someone if you want to be dating somebody else. Gosh, save us all the trouble. My goodness.
That's our life lessons for the day
good
here
for
on
her,
Jocks and
though.
Jills.
But like, here's my
Right?
thing. Like, Taylor Heisey's no slouch. She's a big deal. Okay, you're telling me
I know, dude.
her people couldn't have reached out. Like, it just feels you're in the same Scotiabank arena. Isn't that big? You're like really in a bubble there.
Yeah, I don't know how that didn't happen.
3-on-3 was right after the draft. She's there. Like right there. She was drafting people. I don't know. That's a ball drop on management on both sides. Because all they needed was a side by each. That's all we wanted.
We needed that photo of them together, and we didn't get it. I did see Tate McRae out that night, though, when we were at Paris, Texas. It was crazy. It was just a celeb spotting night.
Cool.
But I did get bumped into, like I said, a lot of times. So it was 50-50 on the enjoyment.
All 5 for 3,
100% enjoyment. Yeah, exactly. And I had a vodka soda in my hand, too. I had to switch to beers immediately, because when you got a vodka soda in your hand, you're going to be wearing it, at least a bottle. It's not spilling everywhere. Anyways, 3-on-3 PWHL showcase. The story there, Savannah Harmon, like 5 points, a hat trick. Players are throwing their gloves on the ice to celly with her. It was awesome.
Dibier threw her blocker on the ice. That was my favorite part.
Dude, she was so funny this weekend. I was at the practice outdoors that morning. Also, their outdoor practice was at 8 a.m. and then their game was until 8 p.m. So shout out to the girls. That's kind of actually, Tessa, my overall takeaway from All-Star Weekend when it comes to specifically the PWHL players. It was kind of a microcosm of how much harder they have to work all the time. Like, they had appearance, and of course, all the All-Stars had appearances all weekend. Like, it's a busy weekend for everyone. But Sarah Nurse was everywhere this weekend. Marie-Philippe Poulin was everywhere this weekend. Every single one of those players was at a million events, not only at events, having to do full glam for events. Like, it's not like they're dudes and they just throw on a jacket and a white t-shirt. Like, it's not the same process. They're getting full glam. They've got outfit teams happening. Like, it was extremely cool. They must be exhausted. And then the Toronto, Minnesota players go play a regular season game the next day on Saturday, and everybody else has to fly back to their cities on Sunday. Like, that was ultimately, it was a cool weekend, but for the PWHL players, great exposure. It was really special for the NHL to have them out. But my perspective, I was like, man, you guys work so hard, and those girls care so much about growing the game. They put so much work in to do that this weekend.
I was just gonna say it's no skin off their back. They love doing that because they understand, and I think that, Sarah Nurse had said in an interview, and I can't remember with who, unfortunately, but she had said, it was cool walking the red carpet because everyone knew who we were. Like, dads knew who we were, the young boys knew who we were, little girls knew who we were. So it was, like, really cool to not just walk the red carpet and people will be like, "Hey, like, who are you? Or what are you doing here?" Like, everyone was calling their names. Everyone knew who they were. So I think that kind of re-energizes you. Look, the ladies wanted to throw down. It's All-Star weekend. They're doing it. You
Yeah.
have to. That's a part of it. But to see, what getting out there, what having this league does for notoriety, recognition, growth of the game, I think having all of that happen kind of re-energizes you and just reassures you that what you're doing matters and it is working. And I think that they're all such great ambassadors to the game that for all of them it was no skin off their back. It's just what they're used to doing. It's what we did when I played. Like, nothing's truly changed on that end, but um that's and I posted about it with Spooner and that little girl named Rocket, who's Light's daughter, and how she had broken her collarbone. And I'd reached out to Pooh and Spooner and I was like, yo, can you just send me a quick vid? Like, this kid's really down in the dumps. And it took all of 7 seconds. They had sent me something back. They're at training camp, actually. And so I sent it along to her parents, and they ended up flying in for a Toronto game. It was the New York Toronto game, I think, when they won 2-0 at home, their first home win. And Rocket actually
Yeah.
got to meet Spooner and take a picture, and it was just a really cool moment to see. And that's what I was saying. That's what is great about the league, is that these ladies care. They matter. They're accessible. They're humble. They're personable. Like, what a role model for your kid. And I'm not knocking, any NHL player, because I know they get tugged at every which direction, and they do a lot, in their communities, or at least you hope they do. But they're a lot harder to access than these ladies. And these ladies, no matter what's going on in their lives or in their day, they always take that extra 5-10 minutes to make, your kid feel special.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Like, Saturday night, you see Nursey and Turnbull helping out firing pucks for the NHL players at the skills
Yeah.
competition. And then the next day, they got a regular season game, which was a great game.
Mhm.
Toronto, Minnesota, first place team. At that point, Toronto was in last place coming out of the All-Star break. And what a game it was Saturday at the Mattamy Athletic Center. Like, in the
Ye
midst of All-Star weekend, still an awesome turnout there. Natalie Spooner gets 2 again. Like, it was great showing for Toronto that day.
I mean, I'm not even gonna touch this one because, Julie, I gotta give you a little bit of props. You wrote a wicked article for TSN.ca. You're at that game, living it live. So give me the breakdown. Give me the sights. Give me the sounds. What'd you guys talk about after the
Yeah,
game,
man.
and what'd you see?
Yeah, I kind of got, honestly, my initial kind of thought when I got into sports was that I was going to be a writer, and like that's was kind of my main thing in high school and university, and then career's kind of fallen this way, so I thought I'd get back to it, make sure I could still write competent thoughts and use my thesaurus with big words. But it was a great game. It was a good showing for Toronto. 4-1 victory against the team going into the All-Star break that was tied for first place. Toronto coming in was in last place, but we had talked about we didn't really think that where Toronto was in the standings was totally indicative of how they'd played so far this season. Like, they had outshot their opponents in every single game but one up until that point. So it was almost like goals just weren't dropping for them. And when I talked to Troy Ryan and Blair Turnbull after the game, they kind of thought the same thing, that it just feels like things are starting to drop in their favor. Though Troy Ryan did say, like, there's still a lot of stuff that they want to get better at. Natalie Spooner's on fire, obviously. She got 2 goals right before the All-Star break, 2 goals right after the All-Star break. So cool to see Rory on the ice after the game. Kendall Coyne Schofield. Actually, I didn't shout her out during when we were talking about the All-Star game, Tess, but Kendall Coyne, seeing her at the All-Star game, having her son on the ice after, there's something special about seeing her specifically in that setting just because of what she did in St. Louis. I think that was a really big moment for the women's game. So anytime I see her at All-Star, it kind of brings back those feelings. But anyways, um, yeah, Toronto able to hold, like, the PWHL's one of the best offenses in the PWHL to 1 goal coming off All-Star. And Victoria Bach makes her debut. we didn't get to talk about that transaction last week because it wasn't official. I'm a big Victoria Bach fan. She's BU's all-time leading scorer, and her school that also had Marie-Philippe Poulin play there. Like, it's pretty pretty big honor to be that person. She was playing on a line with two former BU teammates and Rebecca Leslie and Jessie Comfer. They looked like they had good connection going after the game. They were smiling at one another, happy to be reunited. So Victoria was finishing up her teaching certificate. She gets in the lineup, and for a team in Toronto that's looking for more offense, I think it's pretty welcome to get her in and roll in. The thing that Troy mentioned was actually interesting. He said, she'll have to kind of get used to the physicality of the league because it is something you have to adapt to in this new league.
Yeah, I got some bones to pick with that, but I agree. It was nice to see her back. Spooner, I can't say enough. She's just solidifying, what everybody
Yeah.
already thought about her. She had a tough comeback, I think, after having Rory and trying to make, that comeback to Worlds so fast, I want to say. I don't want to say it was obvious that she was a step behind. It wasn't that. It was just like, dude, you just had a baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
Like,
was crazy
you're
that she was
not
able to get
supposed to
back.
be able to do all of this yet. And she scored in that first game. I remember the roof popped off, but she's back to Spooner, like 100 Spooner. And
Yeah.
I love, you know, Spooner's the type of leader in the locker room where she keeps things loose and light and she makes everyone feel loved and accepted. And um, I love that she, realized, okay, all the ladies that need to be going here aren't going, and it's got to be me. And, since that first game, she was just like, all right, I'm throwing this team on my back. This is what I'm doing. And whether,
Yeah.
consciously or subconsciously, she knew it's been a really cool thing to watch her do. Cause I've known Spooner since she was so young. I actually hosted her at Ohio State when when she was visiting. I was a super senior and she was an incoming freshman. But so I've known her and her family for some time, and it's been really cool to watch her like grow and mature and develop as a player. And I think the role that she's playing right now is the role that she should be in, and that she's just going to own for the rest of the season. But yeah, I don't know. I love that Toronto's finally finding their footing. I feel bad for the way the season started for them, but I like to see that it's coming to fruition, and things are kind of starting to look up. And look, it's a shortened season,
Yeah.
so the ups and downs are going to happen with these teams, and it's going to be unfortunate for some when the down happens because it might be near the end of the season.
It
And
happens all at once. Like, Toronto wins that game, they're able to catapult way up the standings. Like, they're just playing
they're like
so few
tied for
games,
third.
the 3-point system,
Yeah,
everything could change just kind of all at once.
I
And in
know.
that game, Renata Fast gets a goal, Turnbull gets her first goal. Like, it felt kind of like a monkey off the back game for Toronto in some way to me.
Huge. And like honestly, everyone's getting points. I feel like every game. Like there are so many games going to overtime. It's like so you got to get them when you can because these points matter. It's so close in the standings right now. Montreal and Minnesota are still separated themselves at the top, but like Boston, Toronto, New York all tied with 11 points, Ottawa with 10. Like it's a battle, the bottom half.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sick. You mentioned OT results. 2 OT games yesterday on
I know.
Sunday. Montreal wins over Boston. Oh my gosh, Aaron Ambrose. Aaron Ambrose, who is another person that was buzzing around all weekend, literally at every single event, gets just the sickest play ever to feed it to Laura Stacey backdoor to win it in overtime.
Never mind that. The first goal that was scored in this game, where the puck went from Maureen Murphy to Poulain, and Poulain dropped it down to Ambrose, and the confidence that these three players had up at the top of the blue line to be able to move the puck around like that. Like Murphy, the pass she made through the defender's skate and stick to Pooh, or Pooh one touched it down to Ambrose. I'm pretty sure Boston, the players that were out there, I'm sorry, Rattray, it was you were one of them, but like they're trying to still figure out what the heck happened. And it was a glorious goal. It was beautiful hockey play to the point where last night when I was working Sports Center, I was like, this has to be highlight of the night. Like, there's no play that happened. Like, I don't want to see another dunk, There's no play that's
Yeah.
better than this. And yeah, you know what? That one I felt really bad. When you make a play and it wasn't a good one and you go to the bench and that everyone
You know.
knows. So it like triple sucks. Boston tied it up because of a play like that. And, kudos to Boston. This team's opportunistic, and I think that's where they become and they are so successful or have been so successful is you really cannot even give them or leave them a little meat on the bone. Like, they take advantage of any and every opportunity you give them, and that's what happened. There was a little turnover below the goal line, and it's a play where you could see the panic button was being hit. When in doubt, when you're down there, you always kind of play the puck to the boards just to protect it. Unfortunately, the young lady decided to do a little. You never backhand the puck out of your own zone either, and she tried to do a nice backhand up the middle and flubbed it, and it was an easy goal for Boston. Nonetheless, the players that are supposed to bail your team out bailed this team out in overtime, and like you said, it was Poulin up to Ambrose, and Ambrose was looking shot, which she wasn't. She made a beautiful sauce pass over to Laura Stacey, who's just been what a boss.
Unreal. Yeah.
Laura Stacey didn't always play like this. And I'd love to have her on and talk about this because there was a point in her career where she just decided, I don't know if it was her thinking, I need to be a top line forward and I need to be all this fancy and scoring all of these goals and doing things a certain way. But it's all of a sudden she's just like, I'm going to be the most impossible power forward to play against. And when I say power forward, that doesn't mean like straight up and down skating, only forechecking. Like, she is impossible to stop when she's going with the puck, and she's got hands and she's got great finish, and she showed it all season. So I love the way her game has come to fruition. I hope there's a ton of kids out there looking at her being like, that's me. That's what I'm going to do. Because if Canada can get a lot more of those players, oh my gosh, like I would not want to play against Canada. And I mean, it could go for the United States as well, but I was just thinking on the Canadian side selfishly.
Yeah. And you know what? She's not proving people wrong because everybody knows how talented Laura Stacey was. But I think it's fair to say, like, this was a lot of the comments last night. It's fair to say that when she was announced as one of Montreal's 3 first signings, there's a lot of people who don't know how good she is and how impactful she is on the ice and off. We're kind of throwing the old, like, oh, yeah, she got signed because of this. She's one of the first 3 signings because of this. Like, she's proven she is a cornerstone player in that franchise in her own right.
Yeah. That's the comment. 100%. You stick with it. Great signing.
And now to maybe the game of the week yesterday, and it'll lead us perfectly into our interview with Ottawa's leading scorer right now, hint, hint. But Ottawa, New York yesterday was a crazy game, the biggest comeback so far in PWHL history. New York comes all the way back from a 3-0 deficit. They get like a flurry of goals in the third period, and then Carpi wins it in overtime. She gets the tying goal and the winning goal. She cannot be stopped, and she's trouble, man, out there. And she's causing trouble for Ottawa right now.
Totally. And I love New York, right?
Yeah.
But I got a bone to pick with I know Ottawa's not going to say it, so I'm just going to say it with the referees. I feel like Ottawa's been getting ripped off. I don't want to say bad reffing, but like some calls have irked me. Like on Saturday the 27th when they lost 2-1 to Montreal. That was goaltender interference, that overtime goal. I'm sorry. Anne-Sophie Bette was in the crease. Mash couldn't push out and to cover the angle to make the save. It was a goal. You saw Carla and Haley Irwin. They did not want to let their players off the ice. They're like, no, that's not a goal. Go look at it. Anyways, they ended up losing that one. And then in this game against New York, they had a goal called back because of a fast whistle. And the puck was clearly free. And albeit Brianne Jenner held it like a true pro in the intermission. She's like, you know what, that's fine. It was an early whistle. We're just gonna have to go out there and earn another one. And right when she said that, I'm like, that's Carla. That's the Carla coaching right there. Is that they're not even phased. And it's like, we're just gonna go out there and earn everything that we have and everything that we get. And I was like, that's so great. However, this league is so scary. Like, that would make me so mad that like my first shift, I would just run someone over. You know what I mean? But anyways,
yeah, and
then on
it'll
top
be interesting.
Of it, let me finish my rant with the reffing. On top of
Yeah.
it, there's under 4 minutes left. It's a 3-2 game. Ottawa still had the lead. Okay, Lexi Adzija makes a very clean hit with a player that has the puck. That is what these players were asking for. They were asking for this. And she made a clean, perfect hit. I was like, great play. I actually said it out loud. And then next thing you know, she's in the box with under 4 left in a 3-2 game. Put your effing whistle away. Would you let these ladies sort it out themselves? New York doesn't want that assist. They want to earn it themselves, albeit they'll take it because they ended up tying it up. However,
For sure.
come on, man. It's been great hockey up to that point. There was 2 hits earlier in the game. Woods, I think, took a high elbow to the head. No call. Like, what are we doing? They need to figure this out because, and I'm upset right now because I'm worried about the safety of the players. Now they're kind of like, well, what are we allowed and what aren't we allowed? Could they all just get together and say,
yeah,
get together,
it's
refs?
like the consistency, inconsistency. Nobody knows like what's a penalty and what's not. It's too hard to decipher right now. And
Like-
the safety is a great point.
I hope they go back, and I hope these refs are getting notes at the end of every game because it kind of seems like I don't know if they are, and they're kind of like, well, I guess we'll just call this. But like that Lexi Adzija hit where New York went on that power play and got the game tying goal, that threw me. I was like, enough. Like, poor Ottawa. Come on. Like that felt unfair, and that was like lack of feel to me. And there's nothing that irks me more than a coach or a referee that lacks feel. Because the game is all about feel and gut. I get all of these metrics that people are doing with analytics, cool, but feel is it. And there was no feel on that. It was a 3-2 game with under 4 left. It was awesome hockey, and you ruined it. And it was in Ottawa on top of it. Like, come on, man. That barn, I didn't have my volume up, but that barn must have just eaten those refs up because I would have lost it if I was there. Anyways, sorry, that's my rant. But
The
awesome.
other crazy thing about that Lexi play is that Lexi had gotten blown up on a hit that was like a little bit dangerously away from the boards earlier in the game. And like you could have
Twice.
called that one for sure. Right.
Twice it happened to her. Anyways, so that's my rant. I got that off my chest. Not to say that they're all doing a terrible job and all reffing is brutal. It's not. They've been fantastic. I love the way they're letting them play. It's in those moments where you're like, and they're human. They're not perfect. I get it. But those moments.
It's a feeling out process for them too, right?
Yeah.
Where everybody's kind of trying to figure out like what's allowed, what's not right now. It's tough when the refs don't fully know either, but yeah,
Totally.
everybody's kind of going through this learning process right now.
Yeah. But other than that, great comeback win by New York. Abby Rock, like you said, starting it and setting up that game tying goal. Any other player around the league, I'm like 99% sure, would have just hammered that puck towards the net, and she held on to it. She stick handled. She took a quick look and just tossed it over to Carp. And it was like, wow, that's a goal. Like that was beautiful. And, for Carp just to wheel in overtime, Alex Carpenter to wheel in overtime. Sorry, we're using all these nicknames. I apologize, everybody. Alex Carpenter wheeling in down the right side in overtime and just so casually fires a puck, low blocker, far side. And like, it's an overtime winner. And she was just like, all right, guys, let's just pack our bags and go home. Like, I was like,
let's go home now, ladies. She's so casual. It's so filthy.
I loved it. But you can't not give a shout out to Corinne Schroeder. She played one hell of a game. Shots were like 32-18, I think, at one point with 10 minutes left in the third. I'm quite sure, or in the second. I can't remember. Regardless, she did what she had to do, and that was keeping her team in the game. Like, it very easily could have been 5 or 6-0. Very easily could have been 5 or 6-0. And New York's not crawling out of that one with under 6 left. You know what I mean? So shout out to her. Another wicked performance right before Rivalry Week.
Yeah, so it was a tough loss for Ottawa last night. New York comes all the way back, but we talked lots about Lexi Adzija, her game last night. She's leading Ottawa in goals right now, and she's kind of created this like movement, this wave of her own in the PWHL. She's got such a following. She's doing so much amazing stuff in the Ottawa community. We're so fired up to have her on. She's our third interview on the Jocks and Jills podcast. And as a reminder, all of our interviews this year are brought to our buddies at Nobis. Thanks again to Nobis for the fun this week at All-Star. And thanks for being the first sponsor to hop aboard with us and sponsor all of our chats with these great players. So without further ado, Tess, for the third interview on the Jocks and Jills podcast, here's Ottawa's Lexi Adzija. our third ever guest on the Jocks and Jills podcast, and all of our guests on the Jocks and Jills podcast are brought to you by Novus. Spent the last 5 seasons at Quinnipiac University, where she got 109 points in 151 NCAA games. She was Bobcats captain in her last season, and in 2022, she was the ECAC Scholar Athlete of the Year. She hails from St. Thomas, Ontario. She won bronze with Canada's U18 team in 2018 and attended the National Women's Training Camp in September. She currently leads Ottawa in goals with 4. She's off to a really hot start this season on the ice and off. She's created a storm on social media with just her presence and how awesome she's been this year. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Jocks and Jills podcast, Lexi Adzija. Couple clicks. Lexi, thank you so much for hopping on with us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
So,
Julia,
where should we start with you? Go ahead,
Julia,
please.
I got to start somewhere first. I'm cutting you off because you left a major part of her bio out. Word on the street is she loves to bust out a great dance move once in a while, and that dance move is often her hitting the splits.
That cannot. I haven't seen a TikTok of that. Please, details.
It hasn't been included in my TikTok. There might be a picture from when we won first round of playoffs last year in the locker room of me hitting the splits in the middle of a circle that they just happened to capture. Yeah, and when we go out with the team, I always get some pressure to do it. So it's, and actually, some of the Ottawa girls have seen it. Not going to lie, but yeah.
What has been the moment in Ottawa that's inspired you hitting the splits? Like a big win, a celebration? What was the moment?
I think our first team gathering, having the whole group together, and then a few girls that knew I could do it, and a little bit of pressure.
That's a good way to break the ice.
Yeah.
That's a good fun fact to have about yourself. I could hit the splits at random.
Only one way, though. Only one way.
Which way?
Left leg in front, right leg back.
Okay,
not not like the goalie splits. Yeah, not like the goalie splits. Like runs don't have that much flexibility.
Not the sidesies, just the frontsies.
Yes.
And it's always got to be left?
Frontsies. Yeah, always got to be left in front.
Huh. Interesting.
I haven't really tried the right. Maybe I should try that next, but
don't.
Left in front's my go-to.
Stick with what works. You don't need another injury, Lexi.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah, so should we start kind of at the beginning, Lexi? Because I've noticed that with the PWHL, there's a lot of new hockey fans, so not everybody knows everybody's story. Can you maybe just start by giving our listeners some context as to how you kind of fell in love with hockey at first in St. Thomas, Ontario, and when you started to really think it could be part of your future?
Yeah, so growing up, like a lot of kids in hockey, I had an older brother, and he played hockey. And so at a young age, I think I was 3, I would go to all his games. He's 3 years older, and I'd watch every single game, and my parents would drag me to a lot of practices too. And every time I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And finally they're like, you know what? Okay, we'll get you some skates, put you on the ice. And I, from a young age, had a Smartie, like Smarties, the Canadian candy. Any Americans listening, I know it's different for them, but
Yeah.
I had Smarties addiction. I loved them. And so the way I learned to skate is kind of funny. My dad would stand at each line and would hold a Smartie and say, okay, you just got to get here. And if you get here, I'll drop one through your cage. So they said I was like a little bird. I at the beginning, I was just kind of crawling there. And eventually I'd, take a stride or two and fall and get back up. But I'd make it to that line because I wanted a Smartie. So that's kind of how I learned to skate, which was pretty funny. And then from there, played a couple years with the boys and then jumped to girls hockey at age 7, played for London Devilettes pretty much all of my minor hockey career before I switched over to Oakville Hornets to finish out my last 2 years of junior, and went to Appleby College in Oakville private school, which was great for the last 2 years as well. And then my 5 years at Quinnipiac, and it's pretty crazy because up to a year and a half ago, I wasn't sure what was going to happen with my hockey career. Obviously, Hockey Canada has been a huge goal and dream of mine for as long as I can remember, and I've been in and out of the program, or in the program for a long time, trying to crack that senior team roster now. But in terms of pro hockey, I was like, maybe I'll go try to play abroad, or there's the 2 kind of separate pro leagues now. Maybe I'll try to do that. but I wasn't 100% sure. And then fast forward a year later, it's pretty crazy to see where things are at now, and definitely not something that I thought would be happening a year ago today.
Is that like one of the coolest things about the league, especially for yourself? Because I feel like for players, after, they graduate college, it's like if you're already not in the mix for the Canadian national team, then you're kind of out of the mix. And with this league, it's almost like you can make yourself undeniable. You know what I mean? You can actually play yourself on to that team because you can outperform and outshine, maybe some bubble players, or maybe you're just having this season of your life and it's like, cripes, we got to ride this wave. Like, Lexi, you, for instance, I think you've got a point in every game except for one. And like, you're cruising and you're proving to everybody that like, hey, I've played at the under 18 level. I know what it's like to don the jersey. I can play. I threw up ridiculous numbers at university. Here I am. And I feel like it's almost like, I don't even want to say second chance, but a new chance at life almost. And like a wicked
Yeah.
opportunity that players are actually seizing. And like, thank goodness, because, I feel like the Canadian team for a long time now has really just been struggling to keep up with the American team. And I think this is a wicked opportunity for Hockey Canada to really open the doors for some friendly competition for roster spots.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's definitely something that has crossed my mind. And in college, like, you're in playing certain systems, and I was at a school that played very defensive. And before I went into university, I was this huge offensive threat. And I really developed my defensive game. And I think I could have done more even offensively in college, but just the way my program played was a little bit different than other programs. Like if you look at ECAC compared to WCHA, the WCHA, there's a lot more goals scored in that league than there is in the ECAC. We're just more of a defensive league. Games are a little bit tighter. So coming to Ottawa, like I put a lot of work in, worked on my shot, a lot of stuff in the summer, and knowing that, I do have this opportunity to show that I have put a ton of work in, and I can compete at a top level. And especially last year, I missed over half the season because I had a big adversity of a year, lots of injuries, lots of different things going on. And so I knew this was kind of like a second chance, like you said, to come in and prove myself. And I knew and was confident that I'd put the preparation in. And so I was just waiting for an opportunity to show that I can compete at this level and compete with the top players. And yeah, so just super thankful, honestly, to have this opportunity and to be in Ottawa, where people have asked me, like, what do you think of the coaching staff? What do you think of Ottawa? And it's just been so refreshing. Like Carla is really, I'm going to pump her tires for a second here. She is unlike a coach I've ever had in my entire life. Like I can't even put into words what it's been like to be playing for her the last few months. And just feeling super grateful over here. And yeah, like you said, it's almost like a second chance.
We're Carla lovers. We
You
love
didn't.
Carla here.
Yeah,
Awesome.
she's the best.
Awesome.
You didn't. I know going into the draft, just you mentioned your injuries. You didn't think you were going to get drafted because of them. Were you surprised on that day? And then when you got to Ottawa, did you kind of tell anyone like, "Hey, I didn't even think this was going to happen because I was going to get injured"? Like, have you had those conversations with anyone there?
Honestly, not really. On draft day, I have an agent that's done some pretty good work for me, and he said, "Look, like I think you're gonna go. Like I think you're gonna get drafted." And I was like, "Kyle, I don't know." I was like, "I don't know." So when I did, there was a zoom in of my face, and I like literally looked. I was like, oh, okay, yep, okay, I got drafted. I was pretty shocked. Yeah, and a lot of people didn't know or haven't talked about that. I didn't really expect that, but personally, I was like preparing for not getting drafted and having to go work for one of those extra spots. And obviously going to training camp, I still had to prove myself, and have had to the last couple months here. But yeah, definitely, it was crazy. I really didn't think I was gonna go.
And I love that you did, because you're literally walking proof that, sticking with and hunkering down and battling through adversity pays off. Like, I don't know how you got to tell your agent to get you like an Advil or a Tylenol sponsorship, because the injuries that you have withstood and battled through and recovered from, and the way you've stayed positive, and the way you just stick to the process and working hard and getting to you where you are now, to even like a medical scare before training camp, which I don't think a lot of people know about either. Can you just walk
Yeah.
through some of the major injuries and the timing when they took place, and just
Yeah.
what was going on in your head when all that was happening? Because I'm not sure if everybody knows, but you are probably the strongest. How do you say it? The most mentally tough person I ran into.
Yeah.
Oh, well, first, thank you. Do my best to stay positive this past year for sure. But started last summer. I cracked the under 22 roster for Team Canada and ended up dislocating some ribs at camp. And I said, there's absolutely no way I will not be playing in these 3 series games. I have worked so hard. So I said, wrap me with as much stuff you need to wrap me and give me as much Advil as you're allowed to let me play. So I played those games and my parents were there. And I remember after the second game, my mom was like, Lexi, like, you look ill. Like, I was like, it was the second or yeah, we had one more game left and she was like, I seriously like don't think you should be playing. And I was like, Mom, I will be okay. Like, I'm playing. So ended up playing all 3 games and did as best I could with what I was going through there. And then went to Quinnipiac and my athletic trainer was like, okay, now like you need to let these heal because we have a long season ahead of us. So I missed my first 2 games, which I was like, you know what, this is okay. I can deal with that. Let the ribs heal up a little bit. I had a little bit of time before games even started. So got that, dealt with that, and then I think I was a few weeks in. It was the end of October, and took a bad hit and separated my shoulder, grade 3 separation. So was like just lucky that I didn't need surgery. The doctor was like, "You were so close to needing surgery." So just counting my blessings there that I wasn't going to miss the whole season. But that put me out 10 weeks, and at the beginning of that. To be completely honest, I wasn't in the best mental headspace, and I was thinking like, you know what, this is my last year of college hockey. I already missed part of a year for COVID. Like, I was lucky to get this year, but I just want to play. Um, and so I honestly didn't want to be at the rink. And even looking at where I'm at now mentally to where I was then, it's completely different. And I was lucky to have some great resources around me. And my strength coach was awesome. He was like, look, you have 10 weeks now to work on things in season that normally you wouldn't get to work on. So tell me what you want to work on. And when you come back, you're going to be even better. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. So I, within 2 weeks, was doing at least an hour and a half to 2 hours of conditioning, whether that be on the bike. To start, I was holding my arm like this, biking, to when I could run. And I did, yeah, ropes, running, air bike, anything you can think of conditioning wise, I was doing and was working up to like, by the end of it, like 2.5 hours of hard conditioning a day. And I was like, I'm going to come back and people are going to, like, it's going to seem like I didn't even miss a beat. And Cass Turner, my coach, she was like, Lex, like, we're going to ease you back into it. And I was like, Coach, no. Like, I'm telling you, like, I'm ready to play. Throw me back to the thick of it. And she had some good trust in me. So threw me back into it after those 10 weeks. And she even said, like, holy crap, like, how, like, what did you do? And I was like, a ton of conditioning. I did a ton of conditioning. And that was the best shape that I had ever been in my life. So came back, got to experience an outdoor game at Fenway, which was pretty amazing, and so happy I got to be back for that game. And then unfortunately, I was only back for four or five games, and then took a really bad hit into where the boards meets the bench, and got a bad concussion. So missed another month for that. And that was completely different because all I wanted to do was be at the rink. And there were a couple weeks where I couldn't because the symptoms are obviously very different than shoulder injury symptoms. So yeah, came back and made it back for playoffs and my senior game. So was just counting my blessings then that I was able to finish out the season. But a tough last year and way to go out. Not people ask me like, did you expect your year to go like that? And I was like, no, who would have expected their year to go like
Thanks
that?
for asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is really what I wanted for my year.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, I expected to not play most of my season in my 5th year. You're so right. But no, and I honestly, when I talk about it now, like, I don't think I would be having the year I'm having right now, or I'd be at mentally now if I didn't go through those things. And I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and you might not know the reason at the time, but later down the road, it usually ends up unfolding in ways you never thought, which is what's happening for me right now. I'm living a pretty surreal life.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I ended up I was training for a half marathon after my season that I was supposed to do with my best friend, ended up partially tearing my MCL, went through that, rehab, so delayed my on ice hockey and off ice training for a while. Then in summer, I was back at it training, and I was like, then the other pro league folded, so that was a little more adversity. And I was like, oh my gosh, what else is going to happen to me this year? Like, holy crap. Um, yeah, so I just kept pushing through, kept training, and then probably the scariest moment and worst moment of it all was 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks before I was set to go to Ottawa for training camp. My doctor found a tumor in my bladder, and I remember they were doing the scope, and before that, he was like, look, there's a 99.999% chance that this isn't a tumor, that it's like something else, a buildup of something, or the scan came back wrong. He was like, you are so healthy. Like, all the questions we ask people, you had no to all of them. He's like, you don't have to worry. And then his face when he was doing it was just like, and then my face went like, I was like, oh no. And so he was just like, look, okay, we found a tumor. We don't know yet if it's cancerous or not, but my advice is that we get it out, because the testing will be the same whether we do a scrape of it or you get it removed. And he's like, right now, I only see one. So I got the surgery 15 days before training camp, and he said I would be able to start doing activity in 14 days. So I was kind of close there. And that was just another stressful time, because I was like, oh my gosh, I've trained so hard and now I'm not doing anything the next few weeks. And I have to go right into the first day of training camp and do fitness testing without having done any training now and being on complete bed rest. Like, I couldn't do anything, even go for walks. So I was going 0 to literally 100 into training camp. But I made it through, and I actually got some personal bests at the testing. Surprised myself there. Yeah, and then ended up finding out about a month ago that it was cancerous, a low grade, but super fortunate that it didn't spread. And again, they said really rare form of cancer, and they said that if I stay healthy, it shouldn't come back, but I have to go in for scans now every couple of months for the next 5 to 10 years. So that was something at 23 years old I never expected to go through, especially since I am super healthy. And you ask anyone, I really take care of my body and think about what I'm putting into my body and how I'm fueling my body. So to have that happen when I am that regimen, it was pretty scary. But we're doing okay now, and because I got it out, I didn't have to get chemo or radiation. The doctor said if I left it in, I would have had to have been doing that. So just fortunate that I got it out and that I'm doing okay. So yeah, that was my end of 2022 to all of 2023 in a nutshell. But 2024, the first month, has been great. So looking upwards now.
Yeah, Lexi, it is insane that you dealt with all that. And you're telling us this entire story with this adorable smile on your face and just the most grace. So thank you for telling us that. And you are incredible for pushing all through it.
Thank
The
you.
thing that people kind of take away just from seeing your work and like seeing your stuff online is I think what a lot of people are really drawn to is just how hard you work. Like, your work ethic is insane. Is there a specific spot where that was instilled in you? Like, where do you think your work ethic comes from?
Yeah, definitely my parents, and my dad specifically. I talked a little bit, I don't know where, an interview or something a little while ago. When I was really young, my dad on Christmas, I remember the first year very clearly. I think I was around 7 years old, and he was like, Lexi, go outside and shoot pucks. And I was like, Dad, it's Christmas. Like, I just want to open presents. And I remember he looked at me and he was like, do you want to make Team Canada? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, how many girls do you think are outside on Christmas Day shooting pucks? And we're looking at him and just being like, not many, actually, probably none. And he goes, okay, so if you want to achieve things that are different than other people, then you need to do things that are different than other people. Because everybody wants to be good and everybody says they want to be good, but the only way that you're going to be great and the only way you're going to be different is if you do different things. So ever since then, every day on Christmas, I do something hockey related, whether it's just 30 minutes working on my hands, whether I'm shooting pucks, whether I'm doing some mental skills, something hockey related. And I haven't missed a Christmas since that Christmas. So that's kind of the family I grew up in, and I think it goes back a little bit further than that. It's kind of cool at home. We live in a new house now, just moved there a couple years ago. And my dad built it, and he built it 2 doors down from my grandparents and my aunt, uncle, and my 4 little cousins. Now, last summer, he finished building their house. So it's our whole family on a little road, which is pretty special. But my grandparents immigrated from Croatia. And cool story, my grandpa came with $5 in his pocket. He ended up saving up, and with some other Croatian people that came over, they bought this land. And so I think the work ethic goes back generations, and you just see that, like, my grandparents built this whole life for us, and now we're, living on the land that he saved up to get all of our family beside each other, which is super special. So my dad probably got it from them. And my mom says that my dad taught her a better work ethic. So growing up, just being surrounded by that, I think that's where it comes from, definitely.
Wait, can I ask one more thing about your house? Your
Yeah.
barn puck shooting videos are famous. What is the origin story of the barn?
Yeah, so it's pretty new. Actually, just got built this past summer. Before that, I was shooting pucks like in the garage or in the front yard. Definitely hit some windows, some cars, some other things. So my dad this summer actually surprised me when they built my aunt and uncle's house. I have two of the 4 little cousins. The boys play hockey. So in their barn, I came home and my dad was like, "Look, we have a little bit of a surprise," and he put synthetic ice up there so I can actually go on my skates in there, which is really cool.
Sick.
And it is the sickest setup. Like, I am in there for literally a couple hours every single day, and I get to shoot with my cousins, so some family bonding too. And I do some like shooting lessons with them because they're younger. But it is like literally the best setup. Like, you can see the sunset and sunrise from in there too, and it's out in the country, so you get a good view through the windows. And like, yeah, can't complain. The best. I wish I would have had it. I was like, "Dad, you couldn't have done this when I was younger. Like, come on."
I think
But,
timing's
yeah,
pretty
still
good
nice to
now
have
too,
that.
though. Right?
Yes.
You're playing in the league. Like, you go home, you have a wicked spot to just keep training, and it's awesome. And like you said, it's got a great view, and it's your family's like from day one, quite literally,
So
which
special.
is awesome. That is so cool.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
You talked a little bit about Carla McLeod. What is different about her as a coach that you've never had in another coach? And this isn't knocking any other coach, by the way. Carla just she hits different.
She is different, man. Like, even we got to work with her in a broadcast capacity when she was covering Women's Worlds with us, and we've already talked about it on the broadcast. Like, she just changes the game when it comes to building a team.
Yeah.
I literally don't even know where to start because, like you guys said, like, she is so different. One, how she can connect with players, her wit, I'm sure you guys have witnessed everything that comes out of her mouth. I'm like, how did you, first of all, just her as a person aside from the coach for a second, I'm like, how did you think of that? Like, she could make anybody laugh at any time, and is just so good with her words, which like helps you feel comfortable and connect with her as a player. But I think the first thing is she trusts her players, and you can feel that trust and that belief. And even, myself, I started on the fourth line, and there wasn't a shift that I went out there as a fourth line, and I thought Carla isn't confident in me and being out there. And normally as a fourth line player, you don't feel that. You're gripping your stick. You're like, okay, the coach put me out as a fourth line. Like, I can't make a mistake. And I went out there thinking, she wants me to be creative. She wants me to play my game. She wants me to have fun. Like, and that allowed me to do that. And I think that's why I've gotten to move up a little bit. But I use this example. It was one of the first practices, and Carla drew a drill on the board. And like a typical coach, pass here, get it back, go around the circle, get it back here, do this. So everybody does it how she drew it. She blows the whistle a couple minutes later. We all come in, and she looks at us and she goes, "Where was the creativity in that?" And we all kind of looked at each other and we're like, what do you mean? You drew the drill like that, so that's how we did it. And she goes, "Just because I drew the drill a certain way, I'll tell you a few non-negotiables, like the puck has to enter here, or there has to be 5 passes." She goes, "Does not mean that I want to see this like boring drill done this way every single time. Be creative, do a spinorama, pass the puck off the boards, do a drop pass, do a crisscross, something." She was like, "I do not want to see it done the same way every time. Be creative, have fun doing it." And I have never in my life heard of a coach doing that or witnessed a coach doing that. And first of all, as a player, and now doing this is my job, like it is so fun every day because that is what every day is like. She gives us the reins and allows us to be creative and make our own twist on it. And so that's just so cool. And then in a meeting with her, this is also something that sticks out. She asked me, Lexi, what type of player do you want to be? I looked at her and she was like, what type of player do you want to be? And she told me this story about how she never thought she reached her full potential as a player because she was always playing the way that she thought other people wanted her to play or how coaches wanted her to play. And she said, and I don't think I realized the full potential or that I had as a coach or had been doing my best as a coach until I started coaching how I truly wanted to coach. Because people are always going to tell you how they think you should coach and how they think you should do things. And she's like, that doesn't mean you don't take their input and you can't improve on things. She's like, I'm not saying that. But she was like, until you play how you truly want to play and you're the player that you truly want to be, I don't think I'm going to get the most out of you. So she asked me, this is your chance to redefine yourself. Like, who do you want to be? What type of player do you want to be? And she's like, it's your choice. And I will support whatever type of player you want to be. Which, like, those two scenarios, it's just actually incredible to be around her every day and like learning from her. And I feel like I've had so much growth as a player and as a human being, because I don't think those two scenarios would have happened with any other person anywhere else. Like, that is just unheard of. Anyone I've told those stories to were just like, are you kidding me? Like, you expect to go into pro hockey and they're like, you are Lexi, you're a fourth line grinder, power forward. This is who you're going to be. This is what I expect you to do. And I'm getting, Lexi, what do you want to be? It's actually insane. So those are two stories I like to talk about when I'm talking about Carla, and the word I describe my time being surrounded by her is just like refreshing. Like, it's just so refreshing. Yeah, she's pretty incredible.
Cribber for the
Yeah,
win.
she makes it so easy to fall in love with hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She once did an interview, and the reporter had asked her what it was like playing with me, and she did the entire interview completely sarcastic. She was like, it's awful. And then she just went on, and literally Danielle Goyette read the article and gave her heck about it. And she was like, I was being very sarcastic, Dan. Like, none of that's, she's like, oh, I read it wrong. But it was like, no one out there has ever done that. And it was so good and fun to see. Serious question. Have you met her parents? Have you?
I did.
Okay. Did Edna bring the team her cheesy broccoli rice? This is very important.
No, she didn't, but I'm going to be asking Carla why that hasn't been brought yet.
Edna, get them the cheesy broccoli rice. You will never have I would eat it as a meal. You could throw chicken in it, it's a meal, but I have never had anything like Edna's cheesy broccoli rice. So next team dinner when Edna's in town, you just drop the knowledge that you heard that her cheesy broccoli rice is next level.
Okay, I will. I'm gonna ask Carla next time I see her and she's back from Czech. I'm gonna be like, Carla, why have you not brought this to the team? Come on.
Hoarding all the cheesy broccoli rice. I get it.
It feels like we're joking about it, but it feels like Carla's actually created something special with just how like Ottawa has the most amount of diversity when it comes from players from different countries. Have you guys had any funny moments with that so far? Like, are you learning one another's cultures and stuff? Has there been a moment that stuck out with that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think, well, we have Akane from Japan, who her English is getting a lot better now. Also, how brave of her to come here not knowing anybody and not knowing how to speak our language.
Cool.
Like, I literally do not think I could do that. So props to her, because that's actually incredible. But the other day we were in a video session, and so a lot of times we have a translator that comes in that actually Akane knew from before. It was one of her former teammates' brother actually goes to Carleton or Ottawa, one of them. So he comes out a lot and helps translate. But he wasn't there the other day for video session, and it was a long video session. And she's just looking at the board, and she just nods when she's watching it. And Carla stops for a second and looks at her and goes, wow, this has to be the longest video session of Wakane's life. She doesn't know a word of what I'm saying or what's going on because there's no like drawings on the video. It's just like clips and the coach is talking. So yeah, that's got that moment sticks out for sure, and that was a funny one.
I love it. You are totally taking the walk-ins by storm. Like absolutely crushing it. I have a couple questions on this. Julia, you can hop into if you want. But like your love for fashion, I should say, your passion for it. Was it the quarter zip that truly inspired you to get creative? I know that was a part of your team look back in the day.
Yeah. So we at Quinnipiac had these quarter zips that we had to wear every single game with black dress pants. And so I went up to Cass one day and I said, Cass, look at some of the other teams in the league. Like, can we please ditch the quarter zips? Like, I just can't do it anymore. I can't do it. And she's like, oh, I didn't know you guys didn't like them. I was like, yes. Come on, girl. So that's when it all started. And so my former teammate and I, who were really close, Nina Saigoff and I, we both had that very girly side and love getting dressed up. So that's kind of where the crazy outfits started. We had some good matching ones last year in college and some fun ones we did for the NCAA playoffs. So yeah, the quarter zips, when I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I just can't.
You talk a lot about that, though. I was reading an article, and it's kind of part of because you're like this, your kind of identity as a hockey player is this really gritty in front of the net gal who's not afraid to crash and bang like that. There's one clip of you when you're playing Toronto. It's like you going to town with like 4 different Toronto players all jumping on you. So that's your identity as a player. But then your identity off the ice is completely different. Like, how do you balance that? And is it something that like you ever struggled with? Because it's hard to be 2 really different things.
Yeah, honestly, I think I've taken it. That's my like personal brand, I'd say. It's like you can do both. And I've kind of ran with that since I've been able to. Because at the beginning when I had to wear the quarter zips, I did not like that. I'm like, this is not me. Like, I am not I am not a navy blue black dress pant kind of gal. Like, I need a little bit of color or something in here.
Totally.
So I've kind of, since I've been able to do that, that's how I've built my personal brand. It's been that like you can do both, because I am that complete girly girl off the ice where I love doing my hair and makeup and I love getting dressed up. And then if you were to see me on the ice, you would not think that that's what I'm like off the ice. So I wouldn't say that. I think at the beginning, because people don't expect women's hockey players to look like that or women's hockey players to be like that. So you'll receive comments like, I don't know, different comments that are typical from men that don't support
the comments.
Or that are judging. Yeah, there's lots of them. They never stop. But so at the beginning, but then I was like, you know what? This is me. And when I was starting to like start things on social media, I was like, I want to be as authentic as I can be. Like, you see people on social media and you're like, this isn't really what they're like in real life. And I was like, I'm going to try to show as many parts of me and be my authentic self. And I was like, and what that is a girly girl off the ice and a grinder, a fierce competitor on the ice. So that's kind of what I ran with. And I love it. Like, getting dressed up for games. I truly look forward to that every single time.
The walk-in, like when I was a kid, I don't even know if you guys are probably way too young for this. Do you remember Electric Circus on Much Music? Anybody know? It's just me. Cool.
I know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, like I used to like mimic the dances that they would do like in the windows and stuff. Like when you are doing your walk-in, have you practiced this in front of the mirror, much like I used to practice my dancing as a child? Like your poses that you strike?
I've had a little bit of practice because I got into some modeling this past summer, which is kind of another part of my brand. It's something I've always wanted to do, but again, as a female hockey player, people are like, typical hockey legs, typical hockey build, like you can't model, you can't do that. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can. So I had some practice this summer because I had one shoot that I went to and they sent me 54 poses that I had to know within like 4 days. So I was like, I have to practice these in the mirror. So from doing all those poses, it kind of gave me more ideas. So I'd say lately I haven't practiced in the mirror, but I have some of those ingrained in my brain for sure that I can pull from for the walk-ins.
That's awesome. So with this social media, like I'm comfortable saying social media fame, like you are social media's favorite PWHL player, and for good reason. There's a video floating around of you last night showing up to a local girl's birthday party. Like, tell me a little bit about how that came to be. It's so special that you do that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that was super, like, that was such a memorable moment for me too, like one I seriously won't forget. But so a few weeks ago, I was at an autograph session. I went to the Ottawa 67 junior girls game here a few weeks ago, and they did in between intermissions. I did an autograph session. I actually met this girl. Her name's Clea, and she told me how she's a season's ticket holder, and she's like, I'm one of your biggest fans. And her mom at that time was like, hey, like ask her. And I was like, ask me what? And she's like, will you come to one of my games or practices? And I was like, yeah, we'll make it work. I was like, you message me the times and I'll make it work. So I kind of formed that connection there. And then her mom had sent me a message on TikTok and was like, hey, this is kind of a long shot, but it's Clea's 13th birthday. She's like, I don't know if you remember her, but we met at the autograph session. It's her 13th birthday tomorrow. Could you maybe just like FaceTime me and say hello and happy birthday to her tomorrow? She's having a party from, I think it was like 6 to 9 at night. It would mean so much if she even like saw you over the phone. And I was like, do you live in Ottawa by chance? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So I was like, you can say no if this is weird. I was like, but how about I just show up? I have an old stick I can sign and bring to her, but I'm sure it's not too far. And I think that'd be even cooler if I showed face. And her mom was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you being serious? And I was like, yes, I'm being serious. I will 100% do that. So props to her mom for reaching out and organizing it. So yeah, I was a complete surprise. Didn't tell her. And I showed up and she started crying, which was pretty like crazy even just to see like the impact, like for me to actually like the past month see the impact I'm having, it's been insane. And the girls, if you saw the video, they didn't speak for a few minutes. All of them just stood there and just stared at me. And I was like trying to make conversation.
The best part, if no one's seen that video, you got to go look at it, it's the mom recording, and it's a couple kids running to the front door. And sorry, what's the young lady's name?
Clea.
Yeah. So she walks outside and she goes, oh my God. And she turns around and she looks at her mom. She's like, it's Lexi. Like she could not.
It's so
and then
cute.
She just started bawling and she could not pull it together. And you're like, can I please give you a hug? And she was just like falling apart at the seams in front of all of her friends. And you see all of her friends come running out and they see you and they're like, oh my God. Like, it's like everyone's just like in awe and shock. And you're like, you guys can say, I think it was the mom that was like, you guys can talk to her. That is so cool, man, because you know that one day that kid potentially has a pretty good chance at playing in the PWHL. And I hope that she does, because what a cool video that we will get to replay when covering the league and talk about, what an inspiring moment that was for her to have the player that she looked up to or admired most show up at her 13th birthday. And like your 13th birthday, 13 is a pretty pivotal age. So
yeah.
Kudos to you for, taking initiative. And Julia, that just backs everything I was saying, why this league hits different and why these players are the best role models out there of anyone, anywhere in this world. And I'll put my house on the line and have anybody try and challenge me on that, because what you ladies do for the game and the kids that watch it, male or female, is above and beyond great. And so thank you, Lexi, for being so wicked and making that kid's year. I mean, I feel bad because she's going to have like no birthday that tops that. So good luck on the Sweet 16, Mom.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, what I've been saying, like, it's so special for me too. Like, I'm sure she won't forget that, but like I said, like, I'm not gonna forget that either. Like, a year ago, I didn't think I'd be playing professional hockey, and a year ago, I didn't think I would be able to have the impact that I'm having today. So that was such a cool moment for me too.
That's right, awesome. On. Just a couple more, maybe just hockey stuff. There were a couple questions in our Ask Lexi kind of thing that I put out on Instagram, wondering who Ottawa's true rival is so far, because some people are thinking it might be the Battle of Ontario was pretty heated in that first debut, but you guys have had some spirited tilts against Montreal as well. So who do you think is going to be your biggest rival this year?
I think maybe Montreal, to be completely honest. Like, on the games against Toronto have been a battle too. But I don't know, something about the Montreal game, like the last one was in Montreal, was super high tempo and super competitive. And a lot of bodies flying around. So I think I'd say Montreal. I'd say Montreal.
Is there one particular player who really gets that rivalry going on Montreal?
Oh, I think there's a bunch. Even just like every time, like you know so many people, it's crazy. Like, but even of course, like the first person you think of when you think of Montreal is like Poulin. But Stacy was like on fire, driving the net hard in the game, and ran into Mash, so that created some fire too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a few. Katie Tabin, I played with her at Quinnipiac. She's a feisty one out there too. We were joking around because she gave me a good shot in front of the net, and then after the whistle, she was like, She's like, we got to play this way. Got to give the people what they want. And I was like, yeah, Taves, part of the game. And I was like, see, and I look at her and I was like, see you next shift.
I love that you guys are talking like that too. That's good.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good rivalry going forward, especially the next few games this year.
Well, Lexi, we really appreciate you taking the time today. We appreciate just kind of watching you turn into this massive star in the league online. Like, you're ripping it up so far. You can't be denied. So congratulations on everything. You have this amazing story. I'm so glad we're going to get to put it out there, and everybody's going to hear just like how much adversity you've put up with, and what a spirit and what a work ethic you have to work through all that. So we appreciate you joining us today, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys inviting me to be on. And it's awesome that you started this podcast to highlight the league. I know I was super excited when I saw this. So thanks again to you.
Keep rolling. It's been fun watching you.
Thank you so much, Lexi, for joining us for this interview. It was a great chat. And again, thank you so much to Nobis for sponsoring all of our interviews this season. All of our interviews on Jocks and Jills brought to you by Nobis. They got the best jackets. Like, every time I see Tessa, she's wearing a dope, different Nobis jacket. So shout out to them for being awesome and for sponsoring that chat with Lexi.
They're great. Not only like perfectly warm, they're also stylish. Like, they're great. There's a jacket for everything. And I even last episode, in episode 2, I was wearing their quarter zip Nobis
I want
sweatshirt.
That. It's sick.
Oh, I tried it on literally in the store, and I turned around and Ed had the male version on, and he was like, "Do you like this?" I'm like, "I'm wearing it." Like,
you guys are the same person. Every time I see you and Ed, like, if anyone listening to this podcast has ever met Tessa's husband, they talk exactly the same way. And every time I see Eddie, I forget. When I saw him at our lunch party, I started talking to him, and I just started bursting out laughing. I'm like, you guys are twins. You are the male and female versions of one another. It's so funny. Anyways, not too much going on this week in the PW in terms of games. International break for the rivalry series. Games kick off again on the 14th, so not till Love Day. But I guess the big news this week when it comes to just regular season PWHL action was the fact that Toronto's big game versus Montreal got announced at Scotiabank Arena. It sells out like that.
I know.
Obviously.
It was so great. Not gonna lie, a little rattled. I tried to get my hands on some tickets, and I'm like, yeah, come on! Like, it was like I felt like I was going through the whole Taylor Swift thing again. Did you? You went online and got tickets?
Well, I'm covering it, so I didn't try to get tickets.
Okay, well, you didn't go through what I went through. Yeah, cool.
I know. I'm sorry, but I did get Eras Tour tickets, so I have fought that battle before.
You did?
You know that I went to the Eras Tour. I went to Nashville last year. My life.
Oh yeah,
peaked.
sorry.
I can't even discuss it.
I thought you meant in Toronto when you had to get the code.
Downhill sledding from there.
No. I thought you meant like Toronto, where you had to get the code, and then you were led into a secret back room. You had to figure out, it was like a.
That's what all the cities were like.
Really?
It was crazy. Yeah.
But it's also it's not only rivalry, right? It's an international break. Like, there's other nations going and playing 4 games in like 5 days. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So be, big time for international hockey before some more PWHL action, Tess.
Yeah, should be good.
Do you want to throw a rivalry series prediction out there for this weekend? Like, do you think Canada comes all the way back again this year?
Man, Listen,
I'm putting you right on the spot, eh?
USA
I just put you so in the
wants
hot
to
seat, dude.
Yeah, USA wants to close this out so bad. Skimura was being interviewed during one of the intermissions, or prior to their game, I guess, and they used it during the intermission. And she was just like, "No, we're just, we're gonna go and close this out." And I was like, "Oh no, I forgot what the series was at."
Yeah.
But look, I think Canada plays well when it has their back up against the wall. I think that, they have the belief that they know they can come back being down 3-1. But
Yeah.
the US also understands, like, yo, this team can come back. Like, it happened last year. So can we not do this?
Can we
Also,
not
it's
do
in
this? That is
it's in
exactly the US's vibe.
yeah. It's in Saskatoon. It's going to be a loud and raucous crowd, heavy on the Canadian side. And then Canada's going to have another game in another town or city, I should say, in Saskatchewan, in Regina. Regina's going to be loud and raucous. So it's going to be like
Yep.
two small raucous barns that are going to be tough to play in for the Americans, and the Canadians are going to have, all the momentum right off the hop with all the fans. So and then it's going to end in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is the state of hockey. So, man, it's going to be a wicked final 3 games of this rivalry series.
Yeah, it should be some fun stuff. So enjoy the little pause from the PWHL. Enjoy all the international hockey. Thanks for tuning in this week. And we hope you enjoyed the interview with Lexi. We hope you enjoy all the coverage this All-Star weekend. Let us know who else you want to see on. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. We appreciate you guys following along everywhere. And we'll catch you next week on the other side.
Have a good
Julia,
one,
Sherry, and Tessa Benum. It's Jocks and Jill's podcast.